Hi, today's session is about Google Forms. For those of you who haven't used Google Forms before, Google Forms is a part of Google Drive, and it's one of the great ways that we can collect data and information from students, teachers, parents, the community. There are also ways to use it to actually make them into tests integrated with Google Classroom. We don't need to do that since we have a full LMS Moodle, and those are not nearly as good and usable as Moodles are anyway. But Google Forms definitely has a place in every school, and there's some great things we can do with it. Now, to get to Google Forms, if you're logged in, you just go to Google Drive, and I'm going to show you first some of the great ways and some of the great things about Google Forms. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the search button and say, hey, I just want to look at my previous forms. And then I could say just owned by me, and then go ahead and say search, and then I'm going to see the Google Forms that we've used in the past, and I use them for all kinds of stuff. I'm going to go down and look at a really old one to give you some information that we've used in the past to show you how the information looks when we bring it all together. This one was a connectivity survey that we sent out to our parents in the elementary school, and 160 parents responded to this one, and we can see some great information that it just creates for us when we use a Google form. So this one says what grade levels are in your house, and let us see how many people are from where, and then what internet access do you have at home, and you can see that of them, 78% said that they have broadband access. 22 people, or 13%, said they had cellular access in their home, and 8% said they had no access at their home in the middle school. This is one of the best things about Google Forms, in the fact that it goes ahead and creates these great graphs for us when we get that data. Now, we can also turn that information into a spreadsheet just by clicking right here. It would open up a Google Sheet with all the answers and what people said, so we can kind of look at then of the people that don't have access, of this 8% down here that didn't have access, what grade levels are those people in? It allows us to say, hey, if this, then this, by looking at the spreadsheet, which I'm not going to do right now because it also will show other information about the people that responded that I don't think belongs in this video. So that's some of the great things that we can look at when we do that. We did things like the Moodle teacher survey, which I don't mind showing. 28 people responded to this one. This one collected the responses and then asked the question, this was sent out to the middle school and high school. Are you in the middle school or in the high school? We got about even response. And then we asked some other questions on Moodle and how they felt on different things when it came to the Moodle LMS. So that's what the data kind of looks like. Let's look at how to make a form, which is really, really easy. So I say new, and I say Google Form. So it, by default, creates this Google form of this color. I can change what the theme looks like, and I can do that just by going here to the custom themes, and I can go and say, hey, I want this to be orange, and I want the questions to be of this font and this size. You can see it doesn't give us a ton. I'm not going to lie. There's not a lot of stuff with the themes, but we can change that a little bit. So we title our form. Up top, and by titling it, that also becomes the name of the form. We can change that if we want to. And then in here, I can put a description, which is what they will see at the top when they come into this form to fill it out. It's not required. You don't have to have that. So down here then, and you can see you can do a little formatting. You can bold, italics, underline. You can add links. You can bullet things. It's a basic editing box in this form description there. So right now, I'm in the very first question. It just adds one that's multiple choice. However, this button over here adds questions. And whenever I add a question, The first thing I have the option of doing is to decide what kind of question it is. And you can see there's some options here. Short answer, it will fill into the, and so will paragraphs, will fill into the Excel spreadsheet or the Google Sheets if I create a Google Sheet afterwards, but there's no way for it to bring that information together and make it a graph, just so you know. So if you're looking for data, short answers and paragraphs will give you data, but it's not going to give you quick access data at the end. And then we've got multiple choice, check boxes, drop downs, and those will all give us data, whether it's a bar graph or a pie chart, that we can easily look at from the answers on those if that's the kind of information we're looking to get. And then we can also, in a Google form, allow people to upload files. If part of this survey is upload a picture of yourself to add on to the website or something, I can have a file upload in there. You can make it have scales. So you can say pick between 1 and 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. How do you feel about blah, kind of thing. You can have grids that you fill out where it's multiple things to match with a large fill out area. You can have a checkbox grid. You can have it fill in dates and times to answers as well. So those are the kinds of data that we can collect on any kind of a Google form. So now, here under options, we can fill in anything we want. I could even say, make this a yes/no question. Did you have a good summer? Question mark. So I could make them yes and no. And as soon as I start that, it says, hey, I suggest you add no and maybe. So if I hit add all, it's going to go ahead and put yes, no, maybe in there. You can add another option down here. Fantastic, whatever. So there's a multiple choice question that's the same as a true false, just so you know. Multiple choice and true false if you were doing a survey, or just what answer options do you have over there. And you can see this little picture button. I could also add images for them to select from if I didn't want to add words. So if you were doing a survey on which kind of art do you like the best, you could do different pictures of art added in there. If I hit add image, it just brings me to a thing to say, hey, do you want to upload, take from your camera, pick from a URL? You get the idea. If I don't like an answer, I can just exit and say, no, I just want yes or no. It was okay, I guess. Or maybe. Got my caps lock on, sorta. Or their student answer. Okay, down here, I can copy that question now. I can delete that question, and I can make it required or not. So if it's required on any one of these questions on a Google form, they cannot submit until they've answered that. There are probably sometimes that you only want it if they're going to answer the question. There's sometimes you're going to say, if they have a preference, if you say, what's your preference on this? Well, maybe that's not a required one. So you get the idea. What did you do? What did you do this summer that was most memorable? Oh, and look, by the way, no spelling checker. But I've got the online spelling checker, and it's going to say, oh, you messed all that up. Let's say most memorable. Well, that's not a multiple choice question. Oh, it automatically, look, it even was smart enough to change it to a paragraph. You could make it a short answer. It just gives you less room to write in between those two. And I'm going to make that required as well. Some other things that we can do, you can see here, has the ability to import questions from another Google form. In fact, you could do it from any Google form that I have access to. I could import the questions from, and then kind of start with something already pre-made. I can add a title in here, which just it gives me the ability to break up sections if I wanted to. it adds the ability to import an image. I am going to tell you one thing. Unless it's changed, if you add images, then you cannot email the survey. I don't know if you've ever gotten one of these Google Forms before where it says the form is right in the email. In fact, when I hit send here, I could send this to somebody, and one of the options is include form in email. That doesn't work if there's graphics in the Google form. So if there's graphics in there, you really can't do it this way, or at least you can send it to certain people or groups, like I could do in THS staff and send this to all the staff members. But if I include the form in the email, it's really not going to be there. They're just going to get a link to it. By the way, this is how you send your completed form, which is send. Send it by email to groups. You can just copy a link that you could then put into a different email. Maybe you're sending out an email and said, hey, when you have a chance, please fill out this form. You can put that link in there, and you can even shorten it so it's not so gross. And you can embed it in somewhere else, like your Moodle page. If you wanted to have a Google form that's collected right inside a different page, like your Moodle class site, you can. Moodle has a module called Feedback, which gives you very much the same abilities as the form, although if you've already got stuff in Google Forms, it's a really nice way to do it. And that doesn't give you a spreadsheet, Google Sheets, like Google Form does. So that's one of the advantages of doing the embed. If I do that embed, then I would just copy this into whatever I'm having them fill out, or wherever I'm having them fill that out into my Moodle page. That's how you embed that. So normally people do these two things. Now, automatically collect responders National Trail School email. If I click that, I am saying this is only for students and staff at National Trail. It will not allow anyone outside of National Trail to do the form. So if I'm trying to collect this information from my parents, for instance, I can't have it do that. I can't have that check mark checked, or they won't be able to. I can send them the link, and as soon as it opens up, it's going to say that they don't have a National Trail email account. So if you're going to do that, like for instance, I'm going to send this link to this survey to all my parents to find out information about them or their students, I need to make sure I uncheck that automatically collect National Trail email accounts. Let's see, other things. Before I go too much further, let's go across the top and go to some of these other things. Add-ons are things that allow us, and I'm going to say they're more advanced, and I'm not going to go through all the add-ons, but add-ons can do a number of things for us with Google Forms. It can make it a test, so it grades whether they're right or wrong answers. We don't do that here at National Trail because we have Moodle LMS, but you can have it do that. You can have it automatically propagate the information they fill out into a form you've created, so that you kind of end up with a PDF filled out of information. That's why it's called Google Forms, because you can use it to create forms. And some schools use this instead of things like Final Forms to get forms filled out and filled out by parents. We already saw what the color palette is. The preview just is that. If I click that, it lets me see what this will look like right now to someone coming into it. And then I've got the undo and redo. I've got the send button, and I've got just a little bit of information that I can put in here as far as if I want to make copies of it, I want to throw it away. Really, here at the send is where most of the rest of the things that we would use are, and who we're going to send this out to, and whether people from outside of National Trail will be able to answer it as well. The other place we have settings is right here on settings. If I say make this a quiz, then I can assign points to each one of those questions. Manage how responses are collected and protected. Collect email addresses. If you do that, then you have the option here. Send responders a copy of their response. You can say when requested or always, so they know and they have a copy of how their response is. Allow response editing. So I will tell you that you've got to do this to do this because it's really hard for them to see it. And if you say collect their email address, which I normally do, it does it automatically if it's a National Trail one, by the way, but it makes them type in something if it's not. It's going to send them back an email to say this is what you responded and give them a link to change it if they want to. So if you're trying to collect information from parents, that gives them ability to go, oh, that's not what I meant, and change that. Okay, requires sign-in, restrict users to National Trail local schools. If you're trying to get it from just our students and staff, that's great. But if you're trying to get it from outside, that's not going to work at all. However, you may want to limit to only one response, meaning that I can't go in and answer it again and again and again. I want just one person to do it, which is then requires this collect the email so that it knows that you've already done it once. So that's some interesting stuff under settings that you may want to do. I go into these fairly often. Presentation. Do you want them to see a progress bar as they're filling it out, or just if it's one page? You don't really need to do that. Obviously, we probably, unless it's a quiz, don't want to shuffle the question order. Do we want them to get a confirmation message? If you do, thank you for filling out my survey. Oh, and boy, that filling. There we go. Show link to submit another response, disabled because I already said you can only do one response. View summary results. That's if you want them to see those graphs of how everyone's answering it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Okay. And so that's an option. And then settings for this form and new forms, you can have the response set to collect email addresses by default, which I do. And question defaults make questions required by default, which I do. And that way, every single time I come in, they're always required and I can make them unrequired. That is the real basics of Google Forms. It's actually pretty simple to use. Anytime you want to do a student vote on something, who won Homecoming Queen, you could do that this way. You can make it so they have to be logged in a National Trail account. They can only vote once, and you can just send it out to, for instance, the seniors. And so only the seniors would get the email with the link to fill out in their email, and they can only do it once. And you can say they can't change their decision once it's filled out. You can put that in the description up top. You can use it for a bevy of things, ways to collect information, and it's all free. It allows you to see all their individual responses. It automatically makes those graphs for you. And if you click the button, which I showed you right here, it automatically turns it into a Google Sheet and allows you to see those in a spreadsheet form as well. That is it for a basic introduction to Google Forms. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop by my room or to give me a call, and I'll try to help you with any more advanced things with Google Forms. And for all of our things, Google, these are intended to be introductions to those things. There are tons of videos available on YouTube and on Google's site itself on how to do more of the advanced things with the different items available to you from Google Drive. Thanks.